Hey friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon like thumbs up, share up right arrow, and subscribe red heart.
What happens about an advantaged prince meets a non-nonsense anchor person who refuses to comedy by aristocratic rules? You're about to attest one of the most explosive interviews in contempo memory where advantage collides with hard-hitting journalism and the results are actually devastating. Before we dive into this absurd confrontation, make a bidding you hit that subscribe button and let me perceive in the comments what you think about celebrities who can't handle tough questions. Trust me, you won't want to absence a distinct moment of what's about to unfold. The atmosphere in the Talk TV flat was electric that evening. Kevin O'Sullivan, accepted for his razor-aciculate wit and abnegation to bow to celebrity status, sat beyond from Prince Harry in what was declared to be a routine promotional account for the prince's latest accommodating endeavor. But from the moment the camera started rolling, it was bright this wasn't going to be your archetypal aristocratic animation piece. Right then, Prince Harry, acknowledge you for joining us tonight. Kevin began, his voice that accustomed alloy of politeness and skepticism that had made him an appalling interviewer. I accept to say, I'm analytical about this new foundation of yours. Your allurement the British accessible to accord money to help underprivileged children, which is admirable, but some adeptness acquisition it a bit rich advancing from addition who's been quite articulate about his antipathy for this country. Harry's aspect stiffened immediately. I'm sorry, Kevin, but I think you're mischaracterizing my position entirely. I've never expressed disdain for Britain or its people. I've been analytical of assertive institutions and the way they operate, but that's hardly the aforementioned thing, isn't it, though? Kevin apprenticed on, aptitude forward slightly. You've spent the aftermost few years giving interviews area you've essentially corrective Britain as this terrible, back-breaking abode that you had to escape from. Now you're back, hand outstretched, allurement for donations. Don't you see how that adeptness appear across as a bit tone-deaf? The prince's jaw tightened visibly. I anticipate you're advisedly aging my words, Kevin. I've been accessible about my struggles with assertive aspects of royal life, but I've never attacked the British bodies themselves. This foundation is about allowance accouchement who need support, behindhand of area they come from. But that's aloof it, isn't it? Kevin's articulation took on a bluff edge. You allocution about allowance accouchement while simultaneously abrasive the very institutions that represent stability and chain for millions of British children. You can't accept it both ways, Prince Harry. You can't debris the monarchy in one animation and afresh expect people to assemblage abaft your charitable causes in the next. Harry's face was beginning to even with anger. I find your assuming of my actions deeply unfair. I've never besmirched the monarchy. I've announced candidly about my experiences and the challenges I faced. That's not the aforementioned as advancing the institution itself. Oh, a pair of it. Kevin scoffed. You've done everything short of calling the aristocratic ancestors a bunch of racist dinosaurs. Your wife went on civic television and essentially accused bearding associates of your ancestors of actuality anxious about your son's bark color. How actually is that not advancing the institution? Now you're putting words in my mouth. Harry shot back, his articulation rising. That interview was about administration our truth and highlighting important issues around race and brainy health. It was never intended as an advance on anyone. Kevin laughed, but there was no amusement in it. Your truth? What about the accuracy of the millions of bodies who account and admire the aristocratic family? What about the truth of your grandmother who served this country anxiously for 70 years? Doesn't their accuracy matter? Or is it just about Prince Harry's truth? Of course, added perspectives matter, Harry replied through gritted teeth. But I have appropriate to acquaint my story, don't I? I accept appropriate to allege about my experiences afterwards actuality crucified for it. Absolutely. You accept that right, Kevin agreed. But rights appear with responsibilities, don't they? And one of those responsibilities is accepting that actions accept consequences. You can't expect to accomplish millions of pounds from tell-all books and interviews while simultaneously advancement your royal titles and assured accessible sympathy. The flat fell bashful for a moment, the tension about palpable. Harry's media handler, sitting aloof off camera, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. This was acutely not activity according to plan. I anticipate your actuality deliberately inflammatory, Harry assuredly said, his voice bound with controlled anger. I came actuality tonight to allocution about helping disadvantaged children, not to be lectured about my claimed choices. But that's actually the problem, isn't it? Kevin apprenticed on relentlessly. You appetite to compartmentalize everything. You appetite to be able to criticize and monetize your aristocratic access aback it suits you, but a fresh comedy the victim when anyone dares to catechism your motives. You can't accept your block and eat it, too. I'm not Arena the victim, Harry snapped. I'm artlessly aggravating to do some good in the apple while actuality authentic about my experiences. If that threatens some people, afresh conceivably they charge to examine why they're so invested in maintaining an anecdotal that doesn't reflect reality. Kevin's eyebrows shot up. Threatens people? Prince Harry, you're sitting in a television studio worth millions, acid a clothing that probably costs added than best people's monthly salary, lecturing the British public about reality. Do you not see the irony in that? What I see is someone who's added absorbed in scoring cheap points than accepting a genuine conversation about issues that matter, Harry replied, his accord beginning to crack. This is actually the affectionate of toxic media ambience that I've been talking about. Tox media environment. Kevin's articulation dripped with incredul. You Begalian ambience where journalists actually ask difficult questions instead of aloof comatose along with whatever you appetite to say? How terribly arbitrary for you. The cameras continued to eon as the two men stared at anniversary added beyond the desk, the atmosphere growing added answerable by the second. Harry's easily were clenched in his lap, his duke white with tension. I anticipate you're being deliberately obtuse, Harry said finally. There's an aberration between asking difficult questions and ambushing someone with loaded accusations designed to accomplish them attending bad. Loaded accusations. Kevin laughed again. Prince Harry, aggregate I've mentioned tonight is based on things you've said publicly. Your own words, your own interviews, your own book. If you acquisition those things embarrassing aback they're played aback to you, conceivably you should accept thought about that afore you said them. I'm not embarrassed by annihilation I've said, Harry insisted, admitting his articulation suggested otherwise. I'm balked by the way you're AG aggregate to fit your narrative. My narrative? Kevin's voice rose with credible indignation. What narrative would that be? That actions have consequences? That accessible figures should be captivated answerable for their words? That you can't accept your royal cake and eat it too? Your anecdotal that I'm some array of traitor to my country and my family? Harry attempt back. Your narrative that speaking candidly about mental bloom and institutional failures makes me the villain. I never alleged you a traitor, Kevin replied smoothly. But since you accompany it up, what would you call addition who takes money from foreign governments while simultaneously undermining British institutions? What would you alarm addition who profits from family ball while claiming to want privacy? Harry's face was now visibly red with anger. I would alarm them someone who's aggravating to body a different affectionate of activity while still contributing actually to society. But clearly, you've already fabricated up your mind about me. Except I? Kevin asked. Or have you fabricated up your apperception about me? You came in actuality tonight assured softball questions and automated acquiescence to your aristocratic status. Aback you didn't get it, you anon started Arena the victim card. I'm not Arena any cards, Harry said, his articulation tight. I'm simply trying to accept a chat about important issues, but you assume more interested in actualization assassination. Character assassination? Kevin's voice rose to bout Harry's. Prince Harry, I'm application your own words, your own actions, your own accessible statements. If that constitutes character assassination, afresh conceivably the problem isn't with me. The restriction in the studio was now so blubbery it could be cut with a knife. Harry's media abettor was making frantic gestures from the sidelines, clearly aggravating to arresting for a commercial breach or an end to the interview. But Kevin O'Sullivan wasn't finished yet. Let me ask you something else, Kevin continued, completely ignoring the agitated signals from Harry's team. You fabricated a career out of talking about your brainy health struggles, which is fine, But don't you think it's a bit acceptable that every time Edition criticizes your behavior, you abatement back on Brainy Bloom as an excuse? Harry's eyes flashed with genuine acrimony now. That's actually out of line, Kevin. Brainy Bloom isn't an excuse. It's an absolute affair that affects millions of people. The actuality that you would blab it like that shows exactly what affectionate of being you are. What affectionate of being am I? Kevin asked, his articulation alarmingly quiet. Please enlighten me. What affectionate of being asks difficult questions of accessible figures who accumulation from their aristocratic connections while accompanying advancing the institution that gave them those connections. You're the affectionate of person who uses Brainy Bloom as a weapon, Harry replied, his articulation frayed with emotion. You're the affectionate of being who thinks that because Edition has privilege, they can't accept genuine struggles or accurate concerns. Oh, I see. Kevin nodded slowly. So, anyone who questions Prince Harry's behavior is using Brainy Bloom as a weapon. Anyone who credibility out contradictions in your public statements is somehow attacking people with Brainy Bloom issues. That's an actual acceptable way to shut down criticism, isn't it? That's not what I'm saying at all. Harry protested, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm adage that your access is deliberately inflammatory and advised to cause maximum damage. Accident to whom, Kevin Press? To you, to your reputation, to your adeptness to monetize your royal connections? Because from area I'm sitting, it looks like you're the one causing accident to institutions that millions of bodies authority dear. I'm not damaging anything, Harry insisted. I'm trying to advance things. I'm aggravating to accompany accuracy and accountability to institutions that have operated in clandestineness for too long. Kevin leaned back in his chair, a attending of mock surprise on his face. Accuracy and accountability? Is that what you call it? So, aback you and your wife sat down with a billionaire media mogul and made unsubstantiated claims about your family, that was transparency. Aback you wrote a book abounding of private conversations and petty grievances, that was accountability. Those weren't unsubstantiated claims, Harry attempted back. Those were our experiences, our truth about what happened abaft bankrupt doors. Your accuracy again, Kevin said with obvious disdain. But what about verification? What about corroboration? What about the basal journalistic principle of acknowledging facts before you publish them? Or does that not apply when you're a prince with a book deal? I don't charge to verify my own experiences, Harry replied, his articulation assent again. I was there. I lived through it. I know what happened. Do you? Kevin challenged. Because anamnesis is a funny thing, isn't it? Especially aback there's money involved. Especially aback you're angry and aching and attractive for Edition to blame. How do we perceive that your version of contest isn't black by your own emotional state? Harry's face was now a deep adumbration of red. Are you seriously questioning my memory? Are you suggesting that I fabricated up the racism and the abridgment of abutment for brainy health issues? I'm suggesting that your version of contest is actually that. Your version, Kevin replied calmly. And that presenting it as alleged accuracy without any beforeling for the added parties to respond is fundamentally unfair. They had affluence of opportunities to respond, Harry protested. They chose not to. Oh, they chose not to. Kevin's voice was decrepit with sarcasm. Or perhaps they chose to advance some address and not appoint inner accessible ancestors' feud. Perhaps they chose to chase the traditional aristocratic access of never complain, never explain. Conceivably they chose to advance a awning up, Harry countered. Conceivably they chose to protect an academy over absorption people. Or perhaps, Kevin said, his voice becoming added forceful. They chose to protect the absolution that represents stability and chain for millions of people over the aching animosity of one privileged abandoned who couldn't handle the responsibilities that came with his position. The flat fell silent again. The weight of Kevin's words blind in the air. Harry's breathing was visibly labored, his hands trembling hardly as he absorbed the arms of his chair. You accept no idea what you're talking about, Harry finally said, his articulation almost aloft a whisper. You accept no abstraction what it's like to abound up in that environment, to have your every move scrutinized, to have your brainy bloom abandoned when you aren't out for help. You're absolutely right, Kevin acknowledged. I don't apperceive what that's like, but I do know what it's like to assignment for a living. I apperceive what it's like to pay taxes to a badminton academy that you've spent years undermining. I know what it's like to watch audition with every advantage in activity accuse about how adamantine they accept it, every advantage. Harry's articulation was incredulous. You think losing your mother at 12 years old is an advantage? You anticipate accepting your private grief angry into a accessible comedy is an advantage? No, I don't, Kevin replied, his articulation abatement slightly. And I'm actually apologetic for your loss. But Harry, that was 25 years ago. At some point, you accept to take responsibility for your own choices and your own actions. You can't accumulate using childhood agony as an alibi for adult behavior. I'm not application it as an excuse, Harry protested. I'm application it as an explanation for why assertive things affected me the way they did. But that's exactly what an alibi is, Kevin pointed out. Your adage that because of your trauma, your behavior is somehow justified or understandable. But what about the agony you've acquired to your family? What about the agony you've caused to bodies who believed in you and supported you? What agony except I caused? Harry demanded. By cogent the truth, by speaking candidly about my experiences. By betraying confidences, Kevin replied sharply. By monaizing private ancestors' conversations. By making your grandmother's final years more difficult than they bear to be. By turning your ancestors into a soap opera for accessible consumption. Harry's composure was actually gone now. That's not what I did. That's not what any of this was about, isn't it? Kevin pressed. Afresh, what was it about? What was the point of all the interviews, all the revelations, all the drama? What did you achievement to achieve? I achievement to make things better. Harry said, his voice cracking slightly. I achievement to accompany about change, to advance the institution, to make it added accordant and acknowledging to modern concerns. And how's that working out for you? Kevin asked with brutal directness. Has the absolution become more modern? Has it become added responsive? Or has it aloof become added arresting and more bankrupt off because of your attacks? They're not attacks, Harry insisted weakly. They're attempts at reform. Reform? Kevin laughed harshly. You call public abasement reform? You call airing bedraggled laundry and international media reform? That's not reform, Harry. That's revenge. It's not revenge, Harry said. But his articulation lacked any conviction. Afresh, what is it? Kevin demanded. What do you alarm it aback you take clandestine ancestors' disputes and turn them into accessible entertainment? What do you alarm it aback you accumulation from family drama while claiming to appetite privacy? Harry opened his aperture to respond, but no words came out. For the aboriginal time since the account began, he seemed genuinely speechless. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of his discomfort. I'll acquaint you what I alarm it, Kevin continued, pressing his advantage. I alarm it a betrayal of aggregate your family stands for. I alarm it a betrayal of the country that gave you aggregate you have. I alarm it the accomplishments of someone who's absent after image of what actually matters. You don't apperceive what actually matters, Harry assuredly managed to say. You don't know what it's like to accept your own family about face adjoin you aback you need them most. About face adjoin you. Kevin's voice rose again. Or authority you accountable for your choices. There's a difference, Harry. A big difference. The tension in the flat was now almost unbearable. Harry's media abettor was standing up, acutely advancing to intervene. But Kevin wasn't finished yet. Let me ask you one final question, Kevin said, his articulation acid through the restriction like a blade. Do you genuinely accept that your accomplishments over the accomplished few years fabricated the apple a better place? Do you candidly anticipate that attacking your family, undermining British institutions, and access your personal grievances into a all-around media circus has accomplished annihilation positive? Harry stared at him for a connected moment, his face a affectation of almost controlled rage. I anticipate, he said, boring, that you're a small-minded, Absathian man who gets his kicks from disturbing bottom-ward bodies who are trying to accomplish a difference. Kevin's eyebrows attempt up. There we go. There's the absolute Prince Harry. Not the wounded victim. Not the brainy bloom advocate, but the advantaged brat who throws insults when he can't win an argument. I'm not throwing insults, Harry protested, but his articulation was afrayed with anger. I'm making an ascertainment about your character and your motivations. My motivations? Kevin laughed. My motivation is to ask the questions that other journalists are too starstruck or too afraid to ask. My action is to hold accessible abstracts answerable for their actions. What's your motivation, Harry? What's actually active all of this? My action is to assure my family, Harry replied, his articulation rising to about a shout. My action is to create a bigger apple for my children. My action is to breach the eon of dysfunction that has bedeviled my family for ancestors by assiduity at. Kevin attempt back. By creating added drama, more division, added pain. How exactly does that breach any cycles? How does turning your ancestors into a absoluteness show protect anyone? You wouldn't understand, Harry said, his articulation acceptable, algid and distant. You've never had to alive under that affectionate of pressure, that affectionate of scrutiny. You've never had to watch your mother be hounded to afterlife by the media? No, I haven't, Kevin agreed. But I also haven't spent the aftermost few years courting that aforementioned media absorption while simultaneously accusatory about it. I haven't active multimillion-dollar deals to allotment clandestine ancestors' moments with the world. Those deals acquiesce me to be financially independent, Harry replied defensively. They acquiesce me to support my ancestors afterwards relying on public funds. Financial independence? Kevin's articulation was incredulous. You're talking about financial independence while active in a mansion that best bodies could never afford while your aegis costs are still being covered by taxpayers. That's not independence, Harry. That's accepting your cake and bistro it too. My security costs are not covered by taxpayers, Harry protested. Are you abiding about that? Kevin challenged. Because every time you appointment the UK, every time you make her accessible appearance, there are costs involved. Costs that Edition has to pay. And it's not aloof financial costs, is it? It's the amount to your family's reputation, the amount to the monarchy's standing, the amount to Britain's angel about the world. Harry's face was now angled with rage. I don't affliction about Britain's image. I affliction about the truth. I care about accountability. I affliction about not letting bodies get abroad with treating others abominably aloof because they have titles and power. But you accept a title and power. Kevin acicular out, you've used that appellation and ability to launch attacks on bodies who can't defend themselves publicly. You've acclimated your platform to achieve claimed array while claiming to be angry for justice. I'm not clearing scores, Harry insisted. But his articulation lacked conviction, aren't you? Kevin pressed. What would you alarm autograph a book full of clandestine conversations with your father and brother? What would you call? Publicly analytic their actualization and their motivations? What would you call turning ancestors' disagreements into international headlines? I would alarm it telling my story, Harry replied weakly. Your story, Kevin repeated. Always your story, never their story. Never the story of the academy that gave you everything you have. Never the adventure of the millions of bodies who admired you afore you absentatively to burn it all down. I didn't bake anything down, Harry protested. Didn't you? Kevin's articulation was relentless. Then why are you beneath accepted now than you've ever been? Why do acclamation appearance that most British bodies accept absent account for you? Why do your own ancestors' members reportedly debris to allege to you? Because bodies like you accept poison them adjoin me. Harry attempt back. Because the media has askance everything I've said and done to fit their narrative. The media? Kevin laughed harshly. Harry, you are the media now. You've fabricated yourself into a media brand. You can't accusation the media for your problems aback you've become allotment of it. I'm not allotment of the problem, Harry insisted. I'm aggravating to be allotment of the solution. By accomplishing what? Kevin demanded. By advancing your family? By undermining British institutions? By access your personal analysis sessions into public entertainment? How is any of that a solution? Harry was bashful for a long moment, his breath abundant and labored. When he assuredly spoke, his articulation was barely aloft a whisper. I anticipate we're done here. Are we? Kevin asked. Are we done because you've run out of arguments? Are we done because you can't defend your actions? Or are we done because you've accomplished that maybe, just maybe, you've fabricated some mistakes? We're done because I don't accept to sit here and accept to this, Harry said, his voice growing stronger. I don't accept to justify my choices to you or to anyone else. But you do, Kevin replied calmly. That's actually what you accept to do. You made your choices public. You profited from them. You use them to advance other people. You actually accept to justify them. No, I don't, Harry said, starting to angle up. I came actuality to allocution about my foundation, not to be ambushed by someone with a bright agenda. My agenda is the truth, Kevin said, not backing down. My calendar is accountability. My agenda is allurement, the questions that need to be asked. Your calendar is humiliation, Harry replied, affairs off his microphone. Your calendar is disturbing down anyone who threatens your small-minded view of the world. Harry, sit down, Kevin said firmly. We're alive on television. You can't aloof airing away from difficult questions. Watch me, Harry replied, his articulation algid and final. I'm done with this circus. I'm done with people like you who anticipate they can judge me afterwards. Alive, the abounding story. The full story? Kevin alleged afterwards him as Harry began to move against the bend of the set. You've spent years cogent us the abounding story. You've accounting books about it, accustomed interviews about it, made documentaries about it. If we don't know the abounding adventure by now, whose fault is that? Harry chockfull and angry back to face Kevin, his face askance with rage. The accountability lies with bodies who refuse to listen, who ban to understand, who ban to appearance basic human compassion. Compassion. Kevin's articulation rose to match Harry's. What benevolence did you show your grandmother in her final years? What benevolence did you appearance your father when he was ambidextrous with his own health issues? What benevolence did you show your brother aback he was aggravating to support you through your struggles? I showed them honesty, Harry replied. I showed them truth. I showed them that I wouldn't be silenced anymore. You showed them betrayal, Kevin attempt back. You showed them that ancestors' adherence means nothing aback. There's money to be made and a ray to be settled. That's enough, Harry said, his articulation afraid with emotion. I'm not activity to angle actuality and listen to any added of this. A fresh don't. Kevin replied, walk away. Prove my point. Appearance anybody watching that when Prince Harry faces difficult questions, when he's captivated answerable for his actions, he runs away. Harry stared at him for a connected moment, his fists clenched at his sides. You perceive what? You're right. I am walking away, but not because I can't handle your questions. I'm walking abroad because activity is too short to decay on bodies like you. People like me, Kevin asked. You mean people who ask difficult questions? People who apprehend accessible abstracts to be accountable for their actions? People who won't bow and scrape aloof because someone has a title? I beggarly bodies who are added absorbed in antibacterial than building, Harry replied. Bodies who get their achievement from disturbing others down rather than appropriation them up. I'm not disturbing you down, Harry, Kevin said, his articulation aback quieter. You're doing that all by yourself. I'm aloof pointing it out. Those words seemed to hit Harry like a concrete blow. He stood there for a moment, aperture, and closing like a angle out of water, acutely struggling to acquisition a response. Aback none came, he turned and absolved off the set, leaving Kevin sitting abandoned at the desk. Kevin watched him go, a fresh angry aback to the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Prince Harry. Walking abroad from questions he allegedly couldn't answer. I accept aback you've spent years avoiding accountability, adverse it hedden can be absolutely a shock. The studio was eerily quiet now. The alone sound, the affable hum of the camera still rolling. Kevin straightened his tie and looked anon into the lens. We'll be right aback afterwards this breach with added of your calls and comments on tonight's rather active interview. As the credits began to eon and the studio lights dimmed, one affair was abundantly clear. This was an account that would be talked about for years to come. An interview that altogether captured the collision amid old academy journalism and avant-garde celebrity culture, between accountability and entitlement, between those who ask the adamantine questions and those who run abroad a back they can't provide acceptable answers. What did you think of tonight's atomic confrontation? Did Kevin O'Sullivan go too far, or was he actually the affectionate of announcer we need added of? Let me apperceive in the comments below, and don't balloon to subscribe for added absurd stories like this one.
Thank you for watching my video.